All right, this is biology lesson 5.04, life cycle of the cell. Before we talk about mitosis in a little more detail, we need to talk about the life of a cell. So once a cell is produced, a brand new cell through mitosis, it goes through stages of its life. Now, if this was you, you might see that. So we've got, look at the pie. So we've got sections of the pie here. So if this was a person, we might say that G1 was your time up through like 0 to 5. When you're a baby, you're learning how to walk, you're learning how to talk. So that's a stage in your life. Let's say the second stage, if we're talking about a human life, might be going to elementary school and high school. Then in G2, you're going to college and you meet your potential future mate, you get married. And then after you're married, maybe you decide to have a baby. Now, you have been alive for what, 25 years? And having a baby is going to be 9 months of that. And so this whole length of time is pretty long. The time where you actually have the baby is really short. Now, for cells, once they undergo mitosis, once they undergo reproduction, they're considered to be a new cell. So their life cycle ends after this mitosis, mitotic phase here. So you have to understand there's phases in mitosis, but there's also phases in the life cycle of the cell. And that's what we're talking about here. So we call all the time that the cell is not dividing interphase. So the first thing we have here is interphase. Interphase is the time a cell spends not dividing. Which is most of the time. So this is the definition. We can also say that this is, so let's say this is letter A. Letter B, it's most of the time. And letter C, it's divided into interphase, that is divided into 3 sections. I don't know why I wonder if I shut this off. Is that better or worse? I'm getting weird coloring on my recording. Let me get my light green. So these 3 sections are G1, S, and G2. And I'm doing these in light green because these are subdivisions. These are the 3 sections of interphase. So during G1, the cell's growing. G stands for growth. Growth phase 1, it's getting bigger. During this time, during the S phase, so this would be, I should write phase. So this should be G1 phase, S phase, and G2 phase. During the S phase, we're copying the DNA. So this says DNA synthesis. So we're going to copy the DNA. But it's still going to stay loose. During G2 phase, the cell grows some more. During this entire time, there are no chromosomes. So the other thing I would say about interphase, so we've got an A, a B, a C. D is the DNA is loose. Chromatin. So even though we copied it, it's not wound up yet. And if you looked at a cell and you couldn't see chromosomes in the nucleus, you know the cell would be in interphase. In fact, that's what we're going to do in lab. So I'm going to say, what phase is the cell in? And if you don't see anything in the nucleus, well, it's interphase. So again, similar to you going up through school, being in school, going to college, meeting your husband, and now we're ready for reproduction. So this little tiny sliver here is the mitotic phase. And this is where we're actually going to reproduce. We have 2 things. We've got mitosis and we've got cytokinesis. So let's do mitosis first. So in the mitotic phase, we've got 2 subphases. So number 1, section 1, we have mitosis. And mitosis itself is broken into 4 phases. We have, we're going to say PMAT. So the mitosis phases are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Or telophase. And then number 2, we have cytokinesis, and that's where everything gets divided up. You might say, well, wait, so I divided, so isn't that first cell considered to like just have another life? Well, no, once it divides, then we have 2 cells, we consider those to be new cells. Well, here's another way to look at it. Let me switch to blue. So if you have the life of a cell, you could divide that life into interphase and into the mitotic phase. That means the part where it's undergoing mitosis or it's dividing. Interphase, we can divide that into G1, S, and G2. The mitotic phase, we can put that into mitosis. Mitosis can be divided into PMAT. And then we can also say over here cytokinesis. So there's a lot of questions, and it might ask you about the life of a cell. It might ask you about mitosis. One of the common issues that students have with this, it's not a super difficult topic, but if it asks for the stages in the life cycle of a cell and it talks about interphase, they'll talk about PMAT. Well, what you have to understand is PMAT is part of mitosis. Mitosis is part of this mitotic phase, and this is one of 2 divisions of the life of a cell. So you have to be careful and read very closely. Again, we're coming back to a lot of, there's a lot of detail here. So a lot of terms that sound the same, and we have different phases, different parts of what we're talking about. We could be talking about the phases of mitosis, we could be talking about the phases of interphase, but you have to read everything very closely. Keeping in mind that the whole point of this is to reproduce, and we're creating exact copies here. That's not going to be the case for meiosis. So when we get to meiosis, we're going to not create exact copies, and that's actually a good thing. All right, so I think that takes care of the life cycle of a cell, and see you in the next video.